Hey everybody, and welcome back to Mr. and Mrs. Ace of Trades. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and enabling those notifications so you don't miss whenever we post a new video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the base that we built for the windmill. We actually put some old styrofoam in there to, again, just recycle and repurpose it, and it also takes away from some of the weight for that base. But yeah, it's another short little video, kind of behind the scenes, if you will. Let's take a look. And the first thing I had was a piece of angle iron that I cut down into 4 equal parts. Once I had them into equal parts, I put them in 90-degree angles. I built a square frame from a couple of pieces of wood, just simple 1x4 that I had from an old project. And I measured the base of the legs of the windmill, and I used that as my dimensions to build this square frame that I knew I was going to fill with concrete. And what I did was I got an old shelf that I made from some 2x4s and a sheet of plywood, laid that out on the ground, made sure it was completely level, then covered that over with some aluminum foil to prevent the concrete from adhering to the wood and make it a little easier when it came to take it off. Then we laid that frame on top of that old shelf, and then we went to work mixing our concrete. And what was cool here was we used a variety of concretes that we had left over from different projects that we had done recently. So we also added in some sand as well, just to help give it some of that thickness. And then once we had that concrete batch mixed up, then we laid down some chicken wire that we had as well. I thought this would be kind of a neat way to test this for reinforcement, because we didn't have any concrete mesh. We didn't have anything that was designated for that or designed for that purpose. And I thought, you know what, let's give this chicken wire a try. Once we had that down and some concrete down on top of it, then we brought in a bunch of this styrofoam, and styrofoam is just terrible for the environment, but I thought it would work well for this project to remove some of that extra density from the concrete, so it would take away some of the weight, but it would still fill that void on the inside. Once we had the styrofoam laid down, then we put some more concrete on top of that and around it on the edges to make sure that it adhered to the bottom. And periodically I would take the windmill base, the stand, and I would sit it in there to make sure that I had my angles and my distance and my proportions right. And as we get closer to where the positioning was going to work out right, we filled it in more with concrete. Then I took those pieces of angle iron and set them into the styrofoam and the concrete. Periodically throughout the process, we would take the windmill base and line it up with those pieces of angle iron just to make sure that everything was sitting nice and flush and tight and pretty. And filling in with concrete as we go, smoothing it out, make sure it's pretty. The other thing that I did that it's hard to notice in this video is that I pitched that concrete to the edges. So there's a slope 360 degrees around, and what that does is it prevents that water from standing on the top of that concrete. So as we set this into place at Grandma's house, we're going to backfill it with some dirt, but even still, as the water comes down, as it's raining, that water will hit that concrete and roll off, so there's no standing water on top of this when it's all finished. Once we had it all laid out and it was good where we liked it. As I'm smoothing out that concrete, I'm building in that pitch. And again, it's kind of hard to see in the video. But it took a lot of tweaking and just making sure that we had the legs lined up where they're supposed to be. And then once we were happy with that, then we added in some extra concrete just for stability and structure. And then after we were done with all of the concrete work, we let this set up for several days outside in the sun, just making sure that everything was good and golden. It even actually sat out in the rain a couple of days. But once it was completed, the frame was we were able to slide that off without any issues. We slid it right off of the base, right off that aluminum foil, just like I had hoped. And we were able to transport it very easily over to my grandmother's house, where I had dug out a little spot, and then we laid it into place. And once I laid it into place, then I started backfilling it with the dirt just to hide that concrete base. And you'll also notice that angle iron, just like I did with the windmill, I primed them and then gave them a few coats of that John Deere green paint so that it would line up and match with that windmill base. And then once it was done, well, you guys know the rest of the story. We were able to mount that windmill, and it's been standing up ever since. It's doing great. But thank you guys so much for watching, liking the channel, and subscribing. Remember, make it, bake it, fix it. Whatever it is, do it yourself.